Breaking news tonight, a 13-year-old cheerleader, broad daylight, leaves home around lunchtime, heads by foot down the street to a little friend's house. She goes for a sleepover. She's never seen again. Bloodhounds scan the neighborhood and a local motel. Police combing that motel surveillance video, searching for images of Hailey. We learn police seized the cell phones belonging to Mommy and her live-in boyfriend. But why? This as police polygraphing friends and neighbors. Mommy volunteers for a polygraph. Local police call in the Texas Rangers. In the hours after we go live with the story, local Colorado police, who originally dismissed the little girl's disappearance as, quote, just a runaway, finally break down and upgrade the case to missing person. But how many critical hours were lost? Bombshell tonight. Hailey's mother takes that polygraph along with the live-in boyfriend. Both fail.
Oh, Lord,
and tonight,
Lord.
after flunking the poly, the boyfriend, Sean Atkins, leaves the home and hasn't been back. Why? Texas Rangers sweep in and search the family home and the shed. What did they find? Hailey's mom questioned over 10 straight hours into the night. Tonight, investigators searching wooded areas by foot, on horseback, and the outskirts of Colorado City. What tip led them there tonight? Where is 13-year-old cheerleader Hailey Dunn?
I never do nothing to that little girl.
Sean Atkins was the last person to see 13-year-old Hailey Dunn alive.
I love her with all my heart.
Boyfriend, he came home from work. He seen Hailey. Hailey was there.
This is where the story takes a tragic turn.
A 13-year-old cheerleader leaves in broad daylight from her own home. She's never seen again.
I want to know more about the boyfriend.
It's frustrating, you know.
Billie Dunn, what about your boyfriend? Has he agreed to take a polygraph? Has he agreed to take a polygraph?
He can take a polygraph in the morning, hopefully early.
Here's what needs to happen.
My main focus is this Hailey.
Mom's boyfriend
We just want her to come home.
has to march right into the police station and demand that they give him a polygraph so that they can move beyond him and find out what happened to this girl.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. I want to thank you for being with us. Bombshell tonight. Hailey's mother takes that polygraph along with the live-in boyfriend. Both flunk the lie detectors. And tonight, after flunking his poly, the boyfriend, Sean Atkins, leaves the home and hasn't been back. Why? Did anyone see her other than your boyfriend that day?
A neighbor saw her out in my backyard.
There are still many questions that need to be answered.
Where is 13-year-old cheerleader Hailey Dunn?
She just disappeared.
Can we confirm that she was out walking to her friend's house?
As far as we know, this friend had no idea she had plans for a sleepover that night.
What about your boyfriend?
Sean Atkins, he was the last person to see Hailey alive.
He's in fact refused to take a polygraph test.
But it is set up for tomorrow.
That raises concerns for the police.
It really doesn't bother me because, you know, my main focus is just Hailey.
It's wonderful to know that everybody cares and everybody wants her back.
We are taking your calls. I'm going to go straight out to Alexis Weed. Alexis, explain to me, how long was the mom questioned? When did we learn she flunked her polygraph? And why did the live-in leave the house not to return?
Nancy, we're hearing that Hailey's mother, she was questioned for 10 to 12 hours yesterday evening, late into the night. She says that she took a polygraph exam, and that's what prompted police to keep her there at the station. She said she failed her polygraph examination. She said she was very nervous when she took it. She also tells us today that her live-in boyfriend failed his polygraph exam only after refusing to take 2 previous other exams.
This, as we learn, cops on horseback and on foot combing the area in a densely wooded area around the Colorado River. To Priscilla Luong, reporter with KTAB. Priscilla, what do you know about that?
Well, Nancy, all I can tell you is that it's been a busy day out here. There were helicopters soaring all across the area looking for some type of sign. There was a real ruckus down over in one area where the helicopter actually landed. We're told that there were rumors that Hailey's body was found, but sources tell me, and also law enforcement spokespeople tell me that there's no body found and the investigation is ongoing.
Do we know, to Michael Board, reporter with WOAI News Radio, do we know what tip, if any, led cops to that particular area of densely wooded underbrush and also along the Colorado River? What led them there?
Well, they've been getting a huge number of tips. In fact, the police tell me today that their investigation has been focused. Now, you know, from the beginning, this has been a scattershot investigation. They've been just throwing things against the wall to see what will stick, and nothing has so far. I'm told it's getting focused now, but, you know, from the beginning, this investigation, Nancy, has been mismanaged. Now, at the beginning of the show, you said lost time in this case. We know that her home was looked at yesterday. I was told by police today that that was the first time they looked at her home. Now, Nancy, if there's a missing little girl, wouldn't you think that her home would be the first place you look? Why wait 9 days to look in her home? That just seems like an irresponsible investigation.
Out to Woody trip for a police commander joining us out of Atlanta. Woody, the first thing you do, you go in the house, whether by consent or by search warrant, you search the whole thing, you bring in dogs, and you separate everybody. They don't all sit around in the family den like this is a murder, she wrote. No, you separate them and you interview each one of them and you line up polygraphs that day. That's what you do. Am I wrong?
You're absolutely correct. And not only separate them, but transport them to a facility other than the residence where you can then start conducting interviews away from each other.
Joining me right now, special guest, Billie Dunn. This is Hailey's mother. And let me tell you something, before you judge her too harshly for failing that polygraph, she's the one that volunteered to take the polygraph, all right? She asked for the polygraph. She is the one that called us and said, hey, I flunked the poly. And then I was questioned for 10 straight hours. Also with her, Clint Dunn, they are separated. They're in the middle of a divorce. They've been apart for 3 years, and they are united tonight in the search for their daughter. Billie Dunn, thank you for being with us. What happened in the polygraph?
Again. I don't know. They had me very faithful in that test. We brought the polygraph up first. We asked for it, and they told us they were very confident in those tests. I put a lot of confidence into those tests. The first Friday they had it set up for us to take, we had taken Ativan the night before to go to sleep. They didn't tell us we couldn't have anxiety medicine. So when we were able to get it set up again, Sean had to actually call them and ask them if he could come down and take it yet, and they said yeah. They came, picked him up, he took his, I went in, they told me he failed it, I lost it, of course. I told him I had so much faith in that test. Then they took me over to the courthouse. I took a polygraph test, I failed it, lost all faith in the test. A couple of other people failed it. One guy I do not know. One person took it 3 times. Took it twice and failed it, then took it and passed it.
Who administered the polygraph to you? Who was it?
His name was Matt, and I believe there were 2 different.
Was it the local police? Was it the FBI? Was it the Texas Rangers?
No, he's a polygrapher that came from Big Spring out of town.
Okay, Billie Dunn, everyone with us is Hailey's mother. What questions did they ask you? What did they ask you?
They asked if I knew anything about the disappearance of Hailey, if I caused the disappearance of Hailey, and if there were any questions I was scared that he was going to ask me.
Let me ask you this, Billie Dunn. Where is your boyfriend?
He went back to his grandma's house. As soon as I found out he failed the test, I told them I didn't want him back at my house. And now I don't know what to think anymore. I would just rather he stay there until she comes home or they find her and we clear this up.
What was his response when you told him to get out?
He was very tearful, and he said he would go.
We are taking your calls out to Pat in New York. Hi, Pat.
Hi, Nancy. Welcome back. I'm glad you're feeling better.
I feel great, but I would like to know, where is this little cheerleader? And what I don't understand, Pat, is why the local police said she was a runaway. There's nothing to indicate she was a runaway. Billie Dunn has looked all the way through the room. There's nothing missing, nothing she took with her. They wouldn't classify it as a missing person. They lost days. They didn't really start searching. You know, hold on, Pat in New York. Don't hang up. Back to Billie Dunn. You told our show that you are frustrated with the way this investigation has gone. You told me they didn't really start even looking for her for 4 days.
Well, they were looking for her from the beginning, but they didn't get the dogs out here till 4 days later, which I was thankful that they did get them out here. I was thankful the Rangers finally came on Monday, but my ex-husband and I called the Rangers office a couple of times, leaving them our numbers, asking them to contact our police department. I don't know if the Sea City Police Department contacted them or not. I know they're finally involved.
So you called the Rangers, you asked for the bloodhounds. Let me go back to you, Pat in New York. What's your question?
Nancy, my question is, if you can ask the mother, if that was my child that went for a sleepover, I thought she had a sleepover, why she didn't call that house at night to say goodnight to the girl or see how she was doing?
Oh,
because
right.
I would have done something like that.
You know what, Pat? I have to agree with you. When I would have sleepovers, they were right across the street, and my parents would watch me walk across the street. What about it, Billie Dunn?
I just don't have an answer for that. I wish I would have called to tell her good night. I wish I would have called the little girl's phone that night.
This is Hailey Dunn's house, the last place she was seen before disappearing.
Who would want to harm the excellent student?
Hailey's friends and family are desperate to find her.
She's not just the talk of the town, she's the talk of the nation.
A 13-year-old this whole community wants home safely.
Nancy Grace, brought to you by the Robitussin Relief Finder.
Well, I'm glad somebody finally asked that question, because I sure would have wanted to hear what she had to say. She does look exhausted, that's for sure.